Welcome to the Weekly Roar, coming live from the Lion's Den, helping new managers become great leaders and awesome bosses. And now, here's your host, Greg Storch.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Weekly Roar. Today, we're talking about how to stop complaining. But before we jump into today's topic, I want to introduce myself. My name is Greg Storch. I'm the founder of Lion Enterprise, a leadership development and coaching company. I'm a certified professional coach and a certified speaker, coach, and trainer with the John Maxwell team. Hey, listen, if you hear anything today that you love listening to, you can catch all of my videos on my website at www.lion-enterprise.com. Go to my website, and on my homepage at the very top of the page on the horizontal menu bar is a link to the Lion's Pride Library where you guys can access all of my videos. They're there for you. So go ahead and check that out on my website. I also have a free e-gift for you. If you want to keep up to date on what's going on in the Lion's Den and with Lion Enterprise, just give me your name, your email address, fill out that form there. You'll get the free e-gift. It's a quick ebook, and you'll get that right away. We're going to be talking about how you stop complaining. I love this one. If you're watching this live, hashtag live. And if you catch it on the replay, that's great. I appreciate you tuning in. Leave a hashtag replay in the comments below, and we'll be good. That way I can tell where my audience is coming from. All right, let's jump right into this. Look, we all complain. I get it. Even if you think you're the happiest person alive, you still complain sometimes. It's one of the first things that actually caught my attention right away when I moved to Italy. I couldn't believe how many Americans were complaining about living here in Italy. You see, we're living in an area that's near a large army base in northern Italy. So there is a big concentration of Americans here. I just don't understand how someone could be complaining while living abroad and experiencing what, many would believe to be the opportunity of a lifetime. So don't get me wrong, I complain too, but I try my hardest not to. I understand how it adds to the negativity of a situation. One of the things that helped me complain less was thinking about the Serenity Prayer. And I would put that into practice. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, right? The things you cannot change. All right, so now when I feel myself wanting to complain, I'm able to catch myself, and then I ask whether or not, is there anything I can do about it? If there's nothing I can do about it, then I don't bother with it. If there's something I can do about the situation, then I look for a positive response. I know it's not easy to do. People actually have a tendency to migrate towards negativity. I hate to say it, but they do. We all do. I actually saw something the other day about some research that showed most people complain once a minute during a typical conversation. Once a minute! That's draining. Think about that. Have you ever been around someone who just complains about everything? It's not only annoying, but it's physically and mentally draining. We're talking about how to stop complaining all the time. One of the first things I noticed when I moved to Italy were all the people who are complaining about things and comparing what's happening here in Italy to what they had in the United States. But anyway, people that complain all the time, when you're surrounded by those people, it can be extremely mentally and physically draining on you. Complaining is tempting because it feels good to vent. But a lot of things feel good, like eating a pound of bacon for breakfast. But that's really not good for you either. And neither is complaining. So this is why complaining can be a real problem if you do it consistently. When you repeat any behavior, it becomes a habit. And once it's a habit, you might not even realize you're doing it. This is the cool thing about our brains. When it senses repeated messages, the neurons start to branch out to reach each other to make the flow of the messaging easier. They grow close together. They build a bridge to almost create a permanent pathway. This message doesn't have a long way to go. It's like, oh, you keep repeating this. I'm just gonna make the pathway to this shorter because it's gonna be easier for me to process this. So the neurons start to join together. So what they say is, neurons that fire together, wire together. So if you develop a habit of complaining, it will become easier to do it. And you will most likely become that toxic person that nobody wants to hang around. So maybe I was thinking about, why are people complaining about living in Italy? This is people's dreams, right? And here they are, and they're complaining about it. Oh, the way they drive, and why are they closed at lunchtime? That's the culture. But maybe the people here in Italy that are complaining because it helps them to bond with others. I mean, that kind of makes sense, right? When you complain about something, others who share the same discontent might actually connect with you. So I get it, right? It's a way to bond. Anyway, we're talking about how to stop complaining. I was just saying that it kind of makes sense for people to complain when they're in foreign environments because it's a way for them to bond. It certainly can bring people together who might not otherwise have anything else in common. But I'm going to tell you, personal and professional relationships will ultimately suffer. They will suffer when there's too much complaining going on. I'm going to share a story with you. I had actually a very good friend of mine. I would define the friendship as being close. And unfortunately, that person was a chronic complainer. You might know somebody like this, a family member, a friend, a coworker, right? Every time I hung around this person, they had nothing positive to say about anything. It was like I was attending a complaint fest every time. Oh my God. So I'm complaining about them complaining. How ironic is that? All right, I'm not complaining. I'm just trying to make a point here. Anyway, the negativity was thick enough I could choke on it. Nothing that I said seemed to be good enough. Nothing ever seemed to be going right for this person. They complained about health issues, family things, relationships. They complained about their work, and on and on and on. And every time I left those meetups, I just felt drained. I was physically worn out. You probably know somebody like this. There's probably somebody in your family, and you probably don't like to really hang around them that much. Don't be that guy. Anyway, no matter what I said or did for this person, it just really never seemed to cheer them up. I'll be first to admit this person had a lot of things on their plate, and they were going through some tough times. Don't we all? We all go through some rough patches in life. Life's not perfect for us. We can choose how we respond to events. Unfortunately, the choice this person made was to react negatively. And that made me feel like they were just making their situation worse by focusing on the negative. That's just me. But it's extremely important that you choose who you spend your time with. And I've talked about this before. Those around you will influence you. And people that tend to default towards negativity, they can have a bad impact on you. And because of that, I removed myself from environments that would expose me to that person's constant complaining, and the friendship ended. And that's why I'm saying relationships can suffer from a chronic complainer. Now, removing yourself from those kind of situations, that can be a hard thing to do sometimes, because as humans, we are naturally, we inherently want to be social. And we naturally and unconsciously mimic the moods of the people around us, right? Especially people we spend a lot of time with. But on the flip side, it makes complaining a lot like smoking. You don't have to do it yourself to suffer the bad effects from it. So what I'm saying is just be cautious about spending time with people who complain about everything. Complainers want people to join their pity party so that they can feel better about themselves. Plain and simple. So keeping with that smoking analogy I just gave you, think of it this way. If a person were smoking, would you sit there all afternoon inhaling the secondhand smoke? Maybe, but I doubt it. You distance yourself, right? You'd move unless you enjoy that. And you should do the same thing when you're dealing with complainers. Years ago, I noticed, when I would ask people, how you doing? Almost every time the response was complaining about something. You've heard them, right? You walk by, you greet somebody in the hallway at work in the morning. You're like, hey, how's it going? I've been better. Wow. Okay, thanks for sucking the life out of my day. So I made a conscious effort to ensure my response was positive when I was asked the same thing. Now, when people ask me how I'm doing or how's it going, I always give them this line, and some of you have probably heard me use it before. Every time I get asked that, I say, man, if I was any better, I'd be twins. It takes them completely off guard. So what happens if you're the one, your attitude's a negative attitude? Look, it's okay. We've all been there, right? I've been there. There's days when everything seems to go wrong and complaining is the easiest thing we can do. I get it. It's easier to complain sometimes instead of just fixing the problem, quitting a job, or having to talk to somebody. What I found is when you try to see things from a different perspective, mindset, right? And you challenge yourself to stop complaining, it absolutely is possible. I'm just jumping in to some of the things you can do to curb your complaining as soon as the church bells stop chiming. I love it. Okay, so here's some tips to stop complaining and ditch the negative thoughts so you can focus on finding a solution. You ready? Okay, here we go. The first thing is you have to change the way you think. There's a proverb that says, stop complaining the rose bush is full of thorns and start being happy that the thorn bush has roses. I love that. I love it. I love it. And that's what I'm talking about when I say change the way you think. Zig Ziglar, famous motivational speaker. He was very well known for this kind of a mindset. I remember listening to some of his, I know, some of his cassette tapes. And he had changed the names of some of the more common things in life because they had negative connotations to them. So he was eliminating the negativity out of his life. He would call what we would call alarm clocks, he called opportunity clocks. And instead of calling lights at the intersection, instead of referring to them as stoplights, he called them go lights. It's how you look at it. That light could either be red and it's a stoplight, or you can catch it in green and it's a go light. Either way, that light's gonna tell you to stop or go. It's all a matter of how you're gonna look at it. Brilliant, right? I love it. Great way to develop a positive mindset. But I get it. It's definitely easier said than done, right? You have to start being mindful of when you find yourself thinking or saying negative comments about something or someone, catch yourself. But if you can shift your awareness and catch yourself, try to stop and force yourself to say something positive instead, okay? So that's the first thing. Okay, second one is a little bit harder for people, I think, actually. And the second thing is to suspend judgment. Suspend judgment. We tend to apply our life lens, the way we view our world, to other people and situations. And then we make a judgment based on our own beliefs because we think they're not up to our standards or the situation is not meeting our expectations. But we're really just judging. We're judging or we're labeling things. What if you could think that instead of something as being good or bad, labeling it, you just accepted it. It just is. It's not good or bad. It just is. That's one way to start lessening your judgment, is to be more accepting of things and not labeling them as this or that. So once you can stop judging without knowing the full story, you might complain less about those things or those people, right? So, one of the other things you can do, and this is where empathy comes in, is try putting yourself in the situation you're judging so you can try on a different perspective. If you have a different perspective about it, maybe you would feel differently about that, and maybe you wouldn't complain. All right, so that was the second thing. The third thing, adopt an attitude of gratitude. Stop for a minute and think of all the great things and amazing people in your life. When you learn to appreciate the good things and focus on those things and those people, you're most likely gonna complain less. So, do you need to develop this a little more, an attitude of gratitude? Try starting a gratitude journal. Journaling is a great way to shift your focus and develop the habit of focusing on your positive thoughts. All right, attitude of gratitude. That's number 3. Number 4, this is gonna be strange, but complain with a purpose. Complaining with a purpose really means solution-oriented complaining, right? That's what that's about. So before you complain, ask yourself what outcome you expect from it. If there's really no purpose to it, to your complaining, then you're probably just complaining to complain, and that's the kind of complaining that you need to nip in the bud. So if you absolutely must complain, here's a suggestion. Use positivity as bookends on the complaint. So start off with saying something positive to avoid creating an instantly negative environment or a negative interaction that's going to put other people on the defensive right out the gate. Say you want to complain about poor service at a restaurant. You could start by saying something like, I've been a customer here for a long time and I'm always happy with your service. That's a great positive entrance or bookend, right? And then you're gonna deliver the complaint. But tonight, blah, blah, blah. And then after you state your concern, end with another positive. So using this complaint at dinner time for poor service scenario, you could end with something like, I'd like to work this out so we can keep our business relationship growing, right? I want to come back. I want to eat here. I like eating here. And so I really want to work on this and get it resolved so I can enjoy my time and return as a repeat customer. That's a great way to end it. So you eliminate the negativity. I mean, if you end up your complaint with something like, I'm never eating here again, think about that. That makes no sense because you've just told the person you're not coming back. I'm never eating here again. So how motivated do you think that person is to do something about the thing in which you were complaining? In those cases, you're just venting or complaining with no purpose other than to complain. So take my advice and try bookending it with a positive. All right, great. All right, the other thing is number 5. Choose your words wisely. I love this, and I've been kind of paying attention to this a little bit more lately because I came across what seems to be a resurrection of the gates of speech floating around the internet. And it goes something like, you probably have seen this. Before you speak, let your words pass through these 3 gates. Is it true? Is it necessary? And is it kind? So what's so funny about this is that the gates of speech has appeared throughout history in different versions, right? Not specifically what I just said, but by different people. So I'm not really sure who said this first. And so for me to attribute this saying to a specific author without knowing who it is would break the first gate. Is it true? How ironic is that, right? I'd break the first gate by just saying, hey, so-and-so said this. So if what you're about to say isn't one of these 3 things, true, necessary, or kind, then what you're about to say is probably going to be negative or seen as complaining. So try and avoid it. Use the 3 gates. Is it true? Is it necessary? And is it kind? Okay, the next thing is accept responsibility. I know, what a novel idea. If something's bothering you, you can either fix it or you can accept that you can't do anything about it right now and complaining will not help or change that. Complaining is passive. It does nothing for you to resolve the very thing you're complaining about. So the thought here is to change the complaining into action to solve the problem. So how do you do that? Well, for one thing, stop going to work and complaining about your family and then go home to your family and complain about work. You'll never, ever get out of that vicious cycle until you figure out what outcome you're really trying to get or how to improve the situation that you're complaining about. This is all about action. Once you do, find people that can help you. Link up with people that might actually have the ability to help you resolve the situation that you're complaining about and put it to bed. That'll usually improve your situation more than just venting or stewing on it. Okay, so there were 6 things that you guys can do right now today to start complaining less and start shifting your mindset to a more positive mindset. That's my list. There are a lot of things in life that when you do them habitually, they aren't good for you, like smoking, drinking. Same thing with complaining. When you do it over and over and over again, it can be bad for you. So that's why I gave some advice on how to curtail your complaining and start reaping the benefits that come from a positive mindset. Okay, so let's recap them real quick. If you want to stop complaining and ditch the negative thoughts, then 1, change the way you think. Number 2, suspend judgment. 3, adopt an attitude of gratitude. 4, if you complain, complain with a purpose. The 5th one was choose your words wisely. And the last recommendation to stop complaining so much is just accept some responsibility. All right, you guys, thanks so much for joining me today live in the Lion's Den. I appreciate it. I'm going to go back through your comments. Please, if you have some ideas on how you can curtail complaining and those around you or even yourself, I'd love to hear it. Put it in the comments and share it with me. I'd love to see how you're handling things like that. Until we meet next week on Wednesday, be powerful, but stay poised, just like a lion. Have a great week. Have an awesome weekend. And I will catch you back here next week in the Lion's Den for the Weekly Roar.
Thanks for watching the Weekly Roar live event at lionenterprise.com. If you enjoyed this video, please tell others to join us each week here in the Lion's Den. Thanks again, and see you next week.